Shalom, friends. Welcome to the Shear in the Maamar HaIkarim. This is the essay of fundamental topics that are available in the Torah, in Judaism, and perhaps by extension, we can speak about fundamental concepts in the world in general, as we will see in the various chapters. This work is written by the Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe, Chaim, Luzzatto, and I am Eliyahu Shear, coming to you from Chesed Ve'emet, my website, www.lovingkindness.co. We're up to chapter 4. If you've been following the series, you would know already that we've been discussing some crucial issues. We discussed matters that pertain to the Creator, Haboirei, the Creator of the universe. And of course, without the Creator of the universe, there is no existence. And that is for sure the most fundamental matter, the most fundamental topic in all of Torah, in all of existence. Without it, we have no basis of anything, and we cannot continue with any of these lessons, so we cannot continue with life itself. The second chapter, we discussed matters that pertain to the spiritual worlds, and in the third chapter, we discussed matters that pertain to the Torah and the commandments, and we learned over there some very beautiful ideas that concern man as he relates to the Torah and the mitzvot, the commandments. We spoke about the importance that the Torah has in our lives. Of course, even though the Torah is given to the Jewish people, there are parts of the Torah which are available to the non-Jewish world just as much as available to the Jewish world. We spoke about the idea that all the nations of the world, in fact, have to follow these 7 mitzvahs, these 7 commandments known as the Shiva mitzvahs, B'nai Noach, the 7 mitzvahs of the children of Noah. Everybody in the world is a direct descendant of Noah. Everybody knows the story. There was Adam and there was Eve, and all was well in the Garden of Eden. And later on, of course, there was a collapse in society, starting from the very moment when Adam and Eve ate from this forbidden fruit. Eventually, the whole of society became corrupt. And as a result of that, God was prepared to wipe out the entire world. But there was one man who stood out, and that, of course, was Noah. He was commanded to build an ark, and in the ark he was saved, while the rest of the world was destroyed in the flood. And all the people who are alive today are direct descendants of Noah. Of course, if we are alive, it is a sign that we must observe the basic laws of humanity, of society. And these are included within the 7 commandments of Noah. And even though the Jewish people themselves are required to observe 613 commandments, nevertheless, the entire world is commanded to engage in these 7 commandments that were given to Noah and his children and his descendants. And this is what we discussed in the previous chapter. In our chapter now for today, chapter 4, we're discussing the theme of what's called Gemul, which means to say that is given. Gemul relates to the word related to gemilot, giving. Even in English, when we speak about giving, sometimes we say gimme, gimme, gimme. Gimme means to give. Gimme is gemul, is to give over something. So what we're speaking about here are the concepts of reward and punishment, something that is given over to somebody as a result of something else. Let us see what the Ramchal teaches us today and how that relates to this great theme in all of existence known as reward and punishment. We spoke about Hashem. We've spoken about spiritual things. We've spoken about the Torah and the mitzvahs. And now it comes to this crucial matter that when we engage in the positive, positive happens. When we engage in the negative, negative, God forbid, happens also. Hine, behold, says the Ramchal, min ha'adam, the species of man, nisyached, is individual, is unique, mikol she'ara minim, from all the other types of species that exist in all of creation. Shenitne lo habechira, the one thing that man is given, that no other creature is given to the full capacity, at least if we want to say it in that way, is this concept of free choice. It is true, animals behave in certain ways, and it seems to be that they are making choices, but the reality is that the animal is still functioning in accordance with certain animalistic tendencies which are driving the animal in a particular direction. However, man has full free choice. He can decide at any moment in time in whatever direction he wishes to go, he may go in that direction, for good or, God forbid, for its opposite. We sit here, for example, you're watching this particular video, I'm giving this particular shiur. Together, we are reading some Torah and we are growing and we are learning. But really, if we wish to, we could do anything with our time. Nobody said to sit and watch me on this video over here, and nobody said I was required to give this shiur and to engage in the study of Torah at this point in time. Well, what I mean, of course, is that the mitzvah of studying Torah is something that's applicable to all of us. The commandment to engage in matters of goodness and kindness is applicable to each of us at every moment in time. Nevertheless, each of us has the choice at any point in time to decide in which direction to go. We can sit and look into space. We can sleep. We can go and do a good deed and give charity to somebody who's in need. There are all sorts of things that we can engage in, or, God forbid, we can engage in all sorts of pranks and hurtful things to other people. We can do whatever we want. Our bodies are given to us as a free tool to engage in any direction we wish to. Remember, the body itself is not intrinsically good, nor is it intrinsically bad. It has the potential to be driven in a particular direction, in whichever way we wish to go. Much like a car is neither good nor bad. It depends where you're going to. Once you get into the car and you decide in the direction that you wish to go, you decide to go in good or you decide to go in bad. The car will take us to the destination, but before we engage in putting our feet onto the gas pedal and moving ahead, we decide which direction to take. Are we going to a place that will flow with goodness, or are we going to a place that will be filled with evil? The car by itself is totally parif. It's in the middle. And the car says, whichever direction you wish me to go in, I will flow in that direction and I will go in that direction. The gas begins to flow into the car system and it makes the car move in a particular direction. The driver holds the steering wheel and he steers the car in whichever direction he wants to go. The car says, certainly, sir or ma'am, I will take you to your destination, wherever it may be. Now, the body is the same idea. Here we are encased in a human body, and we have the potential, provided our body is working correctly, our eyes are functioning, our ears are functioning, the nose, the mouth, the arms, the legs, all the parts of the body working as they should, Baruch Hashem. Well, we can choose to do whatever we want. We can lift up our arms, we can put them down again, we can run with our legs and move them up and down, we can do all sorts of things. We can lie on the bed and do absolutely nothing. A human being has the ability to choose whichever direction he wants to go at any point in time. This is a free gift, and it is the ultimate free gift that God has given to every single human being. What are you going to do with the freedom of choice that God has given you? It's the one thing that separates us from all of creation and brings us to a place whereby we can decide how to change ourselves, our families, the world, and everything around us. Where are we going today? Which direction are we taking? The good path or the opposite path? Our bodies will listen to us, having no idea what we're really doing, and will obey our every command, no matter what we choose to do, as long as the body, of course, is healthy and can do those particular things. The koach lema'asav, so we see that man was given this strength in his actions, lahamshich hamshachos shizachanu, that he's able to draw down various flows of whatever it is that he's drawing down, as you mentioned before. Remember, we said, for example, a man is comparable to the human being, is comparable to this idea of the puppet, which is being worked by the puppeteer who holds the puppet from wherever it is, if he puts his hands at the back of the puppet, or whether or not he holds strings and he moves the wood and the strings begin to cause the puppet to function in a particular way. Well, this is basically what man is, the opposite way around. He works the strings of his own body, and he causes a reaction to happen from above, which causes something to descend below. Meaning, if he works himself in a good manner, he draws down to himself good things. If he works himself in an opposite to a good manner, he draws down those things. Umitzadze, And from this perspective, he has this matter which there isn't in anything else, mishar haminim, that isn't in any other creature. Vahu, and this is as a result of his behavior, he will be able to receive for his deeds measure for measure, which means to say everything is worked out in perfection. When we engage in good a certain amount of steps, then good comes down to us in a certain amount of steps. When we engage in evil in a certain amount of steps, then the evil comes down to us also in that certain amount of steps. As we know, there is a word which is used in the nations of the world, use this word. This is the idea of karma. This is the idea of what we give out of ourselves eventually comes back to ourselves. Today's times, we speak about this idea. People use this expression. They say paying it forward. What does it mean to pay it forward? It means to engage in something of a good nature, even though there was no reason to do the particular good thing. Well, of course, I should be a person who does it lishma, for the sake of the good itself. But think about it. Even if I don't do it just for the sake of good, there is still a goodness in it, even if I expect something back in return. And indeed, that is how life functions. We project something out into the world which is good. We do an act of goodness and kindness to another. And amazingly, whether it's a day later, a week, a month, a year, or who knows how much longer, something good comes back to us. And so often we can even make the link and say the good that comes back to us is because of the good that we did. They say, Shlomo HaMelech says, cast your bread upon the waters, for it will return to you one day. When we send out something which is good, we put it onto the sea and we let it go, rest assured the sea begins to regurgitate exactly what it is that's been sent out to us. And amazingly, the very thing that we send and we cast out into the sea comes back to ourselves. This is an amazing idea. When we are lost and wondering how to bring more good things into our own lives, let us remember that idea. Paying it forward. We give something to somebody else in a positive way today, and pay attention to your life. And you will see that at some point in time, some goodness will come back. Don't be selfish then to imagine that the goodness was meant, was supposed to be, was deserving. I deserve this particular good thing. Not necessarily. But because of something that we did in the past that was good, good comes back to us. When the good comes back, take a look at it and say, perhaps this is because of the good that I did for somebody else. I like to tell people, God pays back everything that we do that is good to others and the world in general. But there's a catch. The check that comes back to us has no signature of God signed upon it. And therefore, as a result, when we receive this check and it has the particular value on it, we say we earned it, we did this for it, we did that for it. In reality, we might have not done anything for it. This is God's payment back to a person, but because of God's modesty, he declines to show his signature on the check, but nevertheless, the check has come about from the bank of the universe. It comes back from God and is signed by him, even though we don't see the signature. And this is the goodness that comes to us because of our paying it forward. This is the concept of Gemul, the concept of reward, and of course, punishment. When we engage in good and we send out the goodness to others, we send it out in a practical way, we send it out through our thoughts of prayer, whatever it may be that we do, that we're thinking of good, we're speaking the good, we're doing the good, it finds its way back to us as well. So this goodness is divided into two sections. The first goodness that we will receive from the good that we do is ba'olam hazeh, in this world. Yes, indeed. Goodness will show itself in this world for the goodness that we do in this world. Ba'olam haba. And then there is a goodness that comes to a person in the world to come. The good that we're doing here, we will receive some sort of gemul, some sort of repayment in the world to come. And of course, there's a catch to it. We don't really know how much good we're going to receive in this world, nor do we know how much good we will receive in the world to come. There's a bigger catch. We don't know when we engage in something of a good nature just how much reward there is. Unfortunately, nobody wrote down a scorecard. Nobody wrote down a corresponding card. If you do mitzvah X, you receive reward Y. You receive 3 points of reward Y in this world and 7 points of reward Y in the world to come. There is no such table, no such chart. And as a result, we are forced into this idea of free choice. God says, choose whatever you want. I am not going to reveal to you the rewards or the punishments for anything that you do, because were I to do that, you would begin to choose only those particular things that you felt were good for you. See, if it would be that you knew that this lottery ticket would be the winning lottery ticket, this one wins the $30 million, and that one only wins the $2 million or $500,000. And it's not to be sneezed at, of course. Let's win the $500,000. But of course, if we could really see on the cards which ticket to take, well, nobody would choose the $500,000. We'd all go for the $30 million every single time. Well, the problem is, if we live our lives like that, then there's going to be a lot of the world out there that need us, that will never receive the help that we could provide for it, simply because we ourselves have chosen to refrain from engaging in it, because we already know that that's only the $500,000 deal. We want the $30 million deal, and every time we see the $30 million deal, that's what we're going to take. Therefore, nothing is revealed to us in this world. We have total free choice, and yet some reward will come to us in this world, and some reward will come in the world to come. Gemul ha'olam haba. Now, the reward that we receive in the world to come, this is in accordance with a person's deeds that he did in this world. And so there will be fixed for a person the level of true goodness that he is deserving of relative to the good thing that he did in this world. We don't realize what we're doing. You know, sometimes we see, perhaps you might have watched these YouTube channels whereby a particular fellow goes along and he hides himself in a certain way, and he's really a very wealthy person, he can help other people, and he goes around testing people, and he finds the people who relate to the test that he's involved in, and relative to how much they give back to him, he gives them back, sometimes completely disproportionately. Amazing. This is the same concept that we're involved in here. We don't know what's going to be and how the test is functioning. What we do know is that when we engage in the right way, we are certain that relative to the good amount that we put in here, so will we receive a reward over there. We don't really know exactly how much the reward's going to be, but we do know something, that when we engage in the goodness, it is clear that relatively speaking, relative to the situation of the person who is in need of the good, even though we don't know how much good we are really doing and how much good he really needs, nevertheless, when we engage in that goodness, we make for ourselves, relatively speaking, an angel and a reward that corresponds exactly to the amount of goodness that we have done. Let's take an example. If I take a wealthy man and I go to give him charity, he wants to start a business which will cost him $20 million. And I give him $10 to start this particular business. But if I don't know that the person is using the money for this purpose, and he puts on a show and he says he's a very poor man and he needs money to help him, etc., and I give him the $10, so that's very nice of me. And indeed, eventually he will get to his $10 million that he needs to start his franchise, his unbelievable business that he's starting. And good for me that I helped him, and good for him that he received the help. But let's take another scenario. A person hasn't eaten for a day, and I go to him and I don't understand his situation either. And I give him $10 and I walk away from the scene. Anyhow, I don't know anything that happens to this person. But what does happen to the person is that he gets himself a meal, and then he's able to take care of himself for the day, and perhaps he got himself a job, and that led to something else. And one day he turns around, 3 years later, he becomes a multimillionaire. That night he was going to pass away. He was going to die. He had nothing. I didn't realize that. I thought he had something, but they gave him $10. I thought perhaps this will help him a little bit. It actually saved his life. And as a result, he was able to achieve all sorts of things in this world, and he became a great benefactor of other people, and the whole world received all sorts of good things because of this particular act of kindness that I did, not realizing what I did. In the world to come, I will see the goodness that I've created from the poor fellow, and I will also see, relatively speaking, what I did create from the $10 to the wealthy fellow, which of course is negligible next to the help that I gave to the poor fellow. Meaning, in the world to come, we will see the actual goodness that we achieved with the good that we did. And therefore, you cannot document it. You cannot say giving $10 to people is equivalent of the reward of 7 points in heaven. Because sometimes the $10 could be worth 1,000 points, and sometimes the $10 could be worth 0.1 of a point. It's all relative to what that $10 is going to do and the situation of the people involved. But I don't always know what it is that I'm doing. So the point is, the mitzvot are there for us, but the rewards we know nothing about until we die. And we suddenly realize the goods that we really did achieve. How much of a change did we make in the world? I don't always know how much change I'm making. Yeah, for example, I give some Torah shiurim available for people. It's all free of charge, but I never know who it's affecting. Perhaps one particular fellow is watching this particular video. He feels all sorts of inspiration. He says, I want to do more. I'm going to study some more Torah because of this. I'm going to do another mitzvah because of this. And he goes ahead and he does that. And as a result of that, he influences somebody else, and he influences somebody else. And so it continues. And so when I die, they reveal the whole story to me in heaven. They say, do you realize when you gave that shiur, you might have affected this and this person? I say, I don't realize anything. I thought I was just giving a shiur to help people, to give them some insight. I was teaching the teachings of the Ramchal. What do I know? I taught the teachings of Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. If anybody deserves the credit, it's him, not me. And they say, no, that is not true. Take a look at the effects that you caused because this person listened and that person listened, and these events happened. Unbelievable. Each one of us has the ability to do this every single day of our lives in even just the small things that we're involved in. The point is, we don't know the effects that we're having in the world, but the point is to engage in the acts of goodness and kindness to change the world as we should, and of course to change ourselves. So this is the idea. So there's going to be fixed for this person a level of goodness, with true goodness, the reality. The reward of the next world. This is not like a falafel. See, a falafel is worth 20 shekels. So you pay your 20 shekels, you get 4 falafel balls, you get some salad inside and some hummus and tahina, and you get some cucumbers, sweet and sour cucumbers. You get all sorts of things put on into this pita, etc. The same every single time. Give your 20 shekels to the falafel seller, you get the same falafel deal every single time until inflation takes hold of it. And then afterwards, it's no longer 20 shekels, it's 30 shekels. But still, for 30 shekels, you'll get the same falafel. For a few months at least, until inflation hits again, then it'll be 40 shekels. Okay, but still, 40 shekels ultimately will be the price for the falafel at that point in time. However, when we talk about mitzvah observance, there is no currency involved. Because relative to the mitzvah that I perform and all the people involved in the process along the way, so too is the reward taken into account for every single thing that happens as a result of that mitzvah that is performed. It is not straightforward currency. Imagine, for example, paying the falafel seller 20 shekels, and he tells you a story. He says, when you gave me the 20 shekels, I finally paid off my loan that I'd taken out. It was a 100,000 shekel loan. And I finally paid it off with the 20 shekels that you gave me. I suddenly felt free, and I went off and I invested a small amount of money in something else because I paid off that loan now, and I was able to control something else. And so he went off and he did that, and he made a great success. And he says to me now, I want to tell you a story. That money I already have in my hands right now, and I wish to give you half of the money I made because of your 20 shekels that you gave. I say, I just gave you 20 shekels for the falafel. He says to me, not true. The 20 shekels you gave me for the falafel turned me into a multimillionaire because of all the things I did afterwards. And I'm just looking in the future of all the things I'm achieving, and I'm already paying you back for all those things right now. When we leave this world, when we die, immediately we are exposed to the ultimate good that we achieved from the mitzvah that we performed. And although we might think to ourselves that it was something very simple, nevertheless, in the next world, we receive the full reward for everything achieved as a result of that particular mitzvah that we did. The true reward, not the currency, 20 shekel falafel. We receive the effects of the 20 shekels that it had on all the people throughout all of existence. And ultimately comes back to us the true reward relative to the amount of efforts that we put in and the scenario and the scene and the people involved, which took place at that point in time. And ultimately, this reward is going to be the cleaving to Hashem, to the blessed Creator. And ultimately, we're going to enjoy this radiance of divine energy, flow of light, whatever it is. I can't really tell you exactly what it is because I'm not there and I didn't recently visit there to be able to tell everybody what's going on. But the principle of the matter is that when we engage in the goodness, it ultimately brings us to a stage of cleaving to our Creator, and relative to the power and the force of the goodness, so will be the cleaving to this Creator. The Gemul yechulak mishnei chalakim. This is also divided into two sections. Ba'olam ha-neshamos u'ba'olam ha-Techiyat. There are two worlds. One is the world of souls. That is, of course, when we leave this world here, and there's just a soul. The soul enters into this palace above, and in the palace above, we're going to be exposed to the nature of souls. U'ba'olam ha-Techiyat. And in the world of resurrection, at a certain point in time, after the Mashiach, when the Messiah reveals himself and takes this world out of its exile that we find ourselves in today, complications of life, difficulties of life, stresses of life, all the things that we just have difficulties with in the world. So Mashiach will take us out of this exile that we find ourselves in, and we'll find ourselves in a world of freedom. Now, once this takes place, then there's going to be elevation upon elevation. And the next stage in this elevation process is going to be the stage of Techiyat, of the resurrection of the dead. Life, Techiyat, Chaya, life. There will be life again, which means to say that the souls will be returned to bodies. We will all come alive again, and there will be a new world, a world of goodness, kindness, happiness, light, energy, power, flow, whatever you can think of, but where things are filled with revelations of goodness constantly. Imagine, for example, I will be ridiculous for a moment, but imagine, for example, if your desire, I am being ridiculous on a physical level, and I wish that you will use this example to be thinking of it in a spiritual way. But imagine, for example, the average person today would like to drive a fancy car. Now, today's times, if you want the fancy car, you need a fortune of wealth, and then you can buy the car. And it might take a long time to make as well because it's a special car. They only make 10 of it a year or 10 of it in total, and you're going to be one of the owners of this car. Now, the thing is, if you want that car, you're going to be you have to be exclusive. You need the money that nobody else has. But now imagine a world where that car that you're imagining now is actually available to everybody. And what does it cost? It costs the value of a chocolate bar, right? Or even less. It's so prominent, it's all over the show. You can buy the car at the value of a chocolate bar. So basically, when we get into the stage of this exit from this exile, there will be an abundance of everything. Whatever it is that we want, it will be there. There will be a creation of everything we can imagine. Imagine bread growing on trees instead of having to go to the difficulty of preparing the bread, of having to prepare the dough and to knead it and to deal with the wheat beforehand and kneading the dough and waiting for it to rise and baking it and all the things involved. You go to a tree and there's your bread coming off the tree, hot, warm, fresh. You just pick it off. And by the way, when you pick it off, another loaf of bread just grows on the tree. Or whatever it is that we want. There's an abundance of everything. So when we enter into this new age, into this new world, this revelation, there will be an abundance of everything. And then the world will ascend from there, from level to level. That is only on the physical level. I want to use the physical as an example to understand the spiritual. Because once we understand the physical, we can relate it to the spiritual. Imagine advancing in spiritual purity, spiritual holiness. the ability to grasp levels of wisdom unattained before, the ability to cleave to God and feel the connection, really feel it. Imagine like Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden experiencing God. But today we don't feel it. Today it's all artificial. Today we can put our tefillin on and we feel a certain wonderful feeling that we're connecting with God, but it's unlike the experience of an Adam and Eve cleaving to God and truly experiencing godliness at that point in time. But this is what's going to happen, and we will elevate ourselves to level upon level. God is causing this elevation in future millenniums, from level to level, ascending in holiness, ascending in abundance, whether it's physical, whether it's spiritual. Take the physical as an example and apply it to the concept as it exists in the spiritual world. We're going to describe more about that later on with the help of heaven. Gemul ha'olam hazeh. Now, the reward also is in this world. Who it is, shekafi ma'asav, according to a person's deeds, yugzar alav hatzlacha, a person, we decreed upon a person success, or tzoros. Everybody knows what tzoros is. Sarot, tzoros, problems. Of whatever kind it is. So relative to the good that we're doing here, relative to the bad that we're doing, so will be the reward in this world of growing physically, growing spiritually, or its opposite. Once again, when a person sanctifies himself and he puts himself onto the path of Torah, amazing things start happening. Suddenly he's engaging in the Chumash. Suddenly he's engaging in the Mishnah. Suddenly he's engaging in the Talmud. Now he's engaging in the Midrash. Now it's the Zohar and the Kitvei Arizal. And he's learning the secrets of Kabbalah, and he's learning the secrets of the universe. And he's growing and he's growing. Well, if he never took that path to start out with, he'd never get there. So the idea is, as he ascends in his studies, as he ascends in his holiness, as he ascends in his cleaving to Hashem, Hashem in return gives him back as a reward the ability to cleave even more. And obviously, when a person engages in the opposite, he begins to cause his life to go down another path, and one thing leads to the next. One mitzvah brings another mitzvah in its train, as the expression goes, and one avera brings in its follow on as one avera comes about to the another, it leads from one to the other. And as the Torah teaches us, Hashem directs a person in the path in which he wishes to go. If we choose the good path, Hashem brings us to higher levels in the good path. If we choose that opposite path, we go in that direction, and Hashem leads us along in the direction that we choose. Check it out yourself. Follow a path of good and see how each day that goes by brings in it more good. In fact, very often, not only is it that the good leads to good, but you see it immediately. Let's say, for example, a person wakes up early and he studies some Torah. Now he's awake. As a result, he can also daven the early davening. He can daven the nights. As soon as the sun rises, immediately he can daven. This is another bonus mitzvah, which makes him more holy because he's cleaving to the mitzvot in the greatest possible way. And it also brings him to greater levels in his growth altogether. But now let's say he goes to shul, he goes to the synagogue, and there he meets some people along the way at the minyan. As a result, he engages in talk with these people, not during davening, of course. We're talking about after davening. And he's just about to leave. And just before he leaves, somebody says to him, Ruvain, I need a lift to such and such a place. You wouldn't happen to be going there, would you? You say to Ruvain, of course. You say to Shimon, of course, I'm going in that direction. I'll be delighted to give you a lift. Now the person gets another mitzvah. See, as we move on, as we put ourselves on a path of goodness, we move from one mitzvah to the next. God continues to lead us. It's like the whole day is filled with mitzvahs. Because once we engage in that mitzvah, we find another mitzvah opening up and another mitzvah opening up. And the entire day is filled with mitzvahs. Choose the path you wish to go, direct your mind, and Hashem leads you. On the other hand, a person who has decided on a bad path will find that the bad elements that he involves himself in one particular situation will lead him, amazingly, to another bad thing, which will lead him to another bad thing. As the Torah says, somebody who gets angry, it's as if he worships idols. How can it be? He never worshipped any idol. And there are different ways of understanding what this means. One way is to understand it that when a person becomes angry, he begins to go off on a path that is not good. Now, as soon as he is showing his anger, he then says, for example, such a thing like, you know what? I'm so angry today, I am not davening mincha. So, all right, it's not davening mincha. He's angry, and he's chosen not to daven mincha. Comes to Ma'ariv, he says, you know, I'm still angry, and hey, I didn't lose out on davening mincha, meaning to say, I don't feel I lost out on anything because I didn't daven. I won't daven Ma'ariv also. Fine, it's not davening Ma'ariv. Next day he wakes up, he says, you know, yesterday it wasn't mincha and Ma'ariv, and nothing really happened to me anyway, and I'm tired of all this. I decide today I'm not really going to feel like making my blessings on food. All right, he's not making blessings on food. The next day he says, I'm not eating kosher. The next day I'm not keeping Shabbos. And the next day, before he knows it, he's serving an idol. He believes the idol is the answer to all his problems. When a person begins his life in a negative sense, when he begins the day in a negative sense, whatever it is, he continues along that path and it gets worse and worse. So therefore, the reward for good, what is the reward for good? Good. The reward of a mitzvah is a mitzvah. What does that mean? It means because I do good, God presents in front of me a great goodness, which is another mitzvah, which brings me to more good and brings me to more good. When I leave the world, all I see in front of me is the good that I created. And of course, opposite for the person who chose opposite. We see that a person receives reward both in this world and the next world. But Teda, you should know, the Ramchal teaches us, that the main thing of reward is be'emes, in truth, hu atova amitis, is the real good, sheyizku bo hatzadikim le'atid lavo, is the good, real good that the righteous are going to inherit and going to merit in the future world. What is the future world exactly? I'm not quite sure at this point in time as far as definitions are concerned. There are lots of definitions. It's what's called this world, the next world. There's what's called the world of the souls, and then there's what's called the Olam Haba, and then there's what's called Le'atid Lavo, and all sorts of expressions that describe different aspects of future worlds that are going to come about. I'm not sure if the Ramchal is being general in his statement or he's being specific, but ultimately there's going to be higher worlds, as we said before, and one of those worlds is called Le'atid Lavo, the future world. The future world is not necessarily the world of the souls, although in a general sense it is the world of the souls. V'chein ha'onish, and so too punishment. Ha'yoser ratzun, which is really bad. Hu avod ha'tova, is the loss of goodness. Hahi, this one, legamrei, completely. So the person who engages in this evil way of life, he gets put onto this path of ultimately seeing the bad completely. Amnam, however, indeed, yesh mitzvahs, there are certain mitzvahs, shekafi midas hadin, that according to the attributes of judgment, hatzodeket, which is correct, righteous, it is the correct approach, ra'oi sheyugmelu ba'olam haba, there is also a time that it's fitting that this person will receive his rewards, his punishments, his due in the world to come, v'gam ba'olam hazeh, and also in this world. But in the success that he gets in this world and all the good things about it, and then also there are all these sins. That according to the attributes of judgment, which is also the righteous attributes of judgment, it's fitting that he's going to receive punishment in this world and the world to come. Mitzvahs, now there are other mitzvahs. The law gives over, says, he's going to get reward in the next world, but not in this world. The Averis, and then of course there are Averis where the law says, he's going to get the punishment ultimately in the next world and not in this world. They're all different levels. He does good, he gets rewarded in this world, not the next world. He gets rewarded in the next world, not this world. He gets rewarded in this world and the next world. He does bad, same story on the side of bad. This world, the next world, both worlds, neither world, whatever it is. The point of the matter is his punishments are all hidden. He doesn't know where where it's going to come from. And his rewards are also all hidden. He doesn't know where it's coming from. The rewards can happen anytime. Happen in this world, happen in the next world, happen in both worlds. There are all sorts of different levels of how these rewards are coming about. And then there are mitzvahs where the law says that he's getting completely in this world. He gets nothing in the world to come. And the owners of the action that he did, whatever it is that the mitzvah is that he did, he receives absolutely nothing in the world to come. When he gets there, he says, don't you remember I did this good deed? He says to God. God says, I remember that good deed that you did. But don't you remember that wonderful home I gave you? So he says, yes, sure. But I worked really hard for that. God says, wrong. He says, that was the reward for a particular mitzvah that you did. That was what I wanted to give you in that world. He said, but God, he says, but I did good. And now I'm here. Now I need my beautiful palace over here. God says, no. I gave you a palace already there for that particular mitzvah. In this world, that mitzvah has been cancelled out. You received your due. And in the next world, I'm very sorry, that mitzvah doesn't count any longer. So, well, with God, I would have preferred it in this world. No. You would have preferred it in this world only now that you're here. But so long as you were there, you kept wanting it when you were there. I remember you saying how much you wanted it when you were there. So I gave it to you. But in this world, the reward's already been given to you now for that world. God is talking to us already when we've left the world. So that world is called this world, relatively speaking, meaning to say, when we're there, God is calling it this world. And he says, in this world, I cannot give you any more rewards because I already gave it to you in that world. And then the Averas, the person commits the Avera in this world, he does a sin, he receives the punishment in this world, this physical world. And when he dies, there's no trace left of anything that he did wrong. Now imagine, for example, that the Avera that he did wrong is that he stole something from a particular person, which is a separate issue altogether, and that's something to discuss on its own level, because that involves other problems. He still has to return the item to the person. But whatever the case is, if the forgiveness is given if the punishment is given to the person in this world, it could be that God says, you are liable to me, God says, for a certain sum of money. I will take it from you in that world, in the physical world. When you die, you are no longer obligated in anything. It's as if the Avera never took place. Fine. And the judge, who is the righteous judge, judges everything in a complete manner, but often in a way where everything is done in a straight way, everything is upright, everything is midah keneged midah, measure for measure. Whatever we do is measure for measure. The thought, the speech, the action. What are we doing? That we do, we receive our due at some point in time in an exact measurement relative to the particular act that we did. Now, bli ola klal, bli avala klal v'ikar, without any type of interference, without any inequality, I don't know how we translate it, any type of inequality at all. And let's give another example. Imagine that we go to work each day and the boss says, look here, I am paying you 25 shekels an hour, right? He says, now what I want you to do is, I want you to create these boxes for me. Here are the cardboard boxes. I'm just thinking up something on the top of my mind. Cardboard boxes, you need to put them into proper boxes. You need to fold it up and turn it into a box. All day long, you sit there, box after box after box after box, 25, 25, 25, 25, every single hour. Boom, the clock clicks in, 25 shekels to you, 25 shekels to you, 25 shekels to you. Now, what about if while you're sitting there, you only do 10 boxes in the hour? Well, if the boss isn't particular and he just said do the boxes and he pays you 25 shekels an hour, you do 10, you do 5, you do 20, you do 40. Well, whatever you do, you know how much money you make? 25 shekels an hour. Because the employment contract says you are there to make boxes, and boxes you shall make, and you will get 25 shekels an hour. That's what you're worth. All right? Somebody goes to another job. He's going to work at the bakery. He has to do bread. He's preparing bread and cookies. The boss says to him, 25 shekels an hour. Oh, 25 shekels an hour. He sits there, he prepares the bread, he prepares the cookies. He does 10 in an hour. He does 5, he does 20, he does 30. What is the value of the money relative to the work that he's doing? Well, it is an amount that is just sucked out of one's thumb, because all it is an amount that represents your employment relative to whatever it is that you engage in. You could be making cookies, you could be doing boxes, you could be filling up bottles with wine. I don't know, whatever it is that you're doing. But every hour that clicks by, you get your 25 shekels. Whether the task requires skill, whether it doesn't. In fact, there is no value to anything. It is just dependent upon how much the boss says he'll pay relative to what the person is prepared to accept. And as long as the two can come to some sort of an agreement, the deal is made. But what if we imagine that the one who makes bread is performing such an outstanding task to society that the value of a loaf of bread to make it is actually worth $10,000? Then we should say at that point in time that every loaf of bread that the person makes, he gets $10,000. Of course, then he'll make plenty of loaves of bread during the hour. Of course, not like he did before, just making however many he makes. He'll make certain to make even more and even more, because he knows that each loaf of bread that he makes is valued at the real value of what the bread is. He knows it. This is the concept of the reward and the punishment relative to what we're doing in this world. When we engage in the mitzvah, we will receive a reward that is exacting to the mitzvah that we did, whether it's this world, the next world, both worlds. If we do an aveira, we receive the liability of that aveira relative to the exact value of what that aveira does to ourselves and to everybody else around us, to the world in general and to society. V'hinei, and behold, just as it is that the body and the soul together, they do these actions, bein hatovim, bein hara'im, whether good or bad, and so too the reward comes about in a connected fashion, together. Amnam, indeed, however, because of the sin of the first man, he ate from the forbidden fruit, nigzar ala mina enoshi kulo nita. The whole world was decreed upon everybody, all of humankind, that they would have this punishment of death, but often in a manner that they would not be able to get to the goodness, ha'amitis, the real true goodness, believe, sheyamut, unless he died. So now God's got this plan. Sorry, Adam committed a particular avera with Chava. They ate from the forbidden fruit, and as a result, they must die. Really, God wanted to give us reward straight away. With the body, with the soul and the body, everything was going to go well as it should be. But because he ate, he brought down into the world the concept of death, and now we have a problem, because how is the reward going to be given out? The matter is, what happened is when he ate from the fruits, there was a flow into the body of pollution, something dirty into the nature of the body, and of course affecting the soul at this point in time in this world, that it would now be impossible for a person to get to this supernal cleaving, which we're speaking about, while all of this pollution is drawn into the person's body. So meanwhile, this person has a bit of dirt. He has a bit of plaque going on, on the tooth. There's a bit of dirt over there. We're going to have to get rid of it. Before we can speak about making the tooth nice again, we need to clean it out so that the tooth will be good. And then afterwards, we can talk about making a nice tooth. But meanwhile, while the plaque is there, we can't talk about anything because the tooth is being destroyed. So here we have the case that the body is being destroyed because of this fruit. Now, until we get rid of the pollution through the process of death, until we do that, the body and soul will not be able to partake of this goodness yet. And he will not be able to partake of this until he dies, and he will return back to the dust. And what's going to happen then? The Ramchal teaches us, this is the concept of Techiyat HaMetim, that the body is going to be cleaned, and it will return and be rebuilt in purity, without any of this zuhama, this pollution, this dirt. And then the soul will return to it, and it will come back to life again. And together, the soul and the body are going to be illuminated with the light of life for all eternity. And then he's going to enjoy from the true goodness, according to the deeds that they did in their lifetime in the beginning. This is what's called the resurrection of the dead, which is known well to all the Jewish people. Indeed, all the while that the body is in the dust, it continues to lose its original form. That's what's going on inside the dust, inside the ground. Now, what's going to happen is the soul is going to stand in its place of rest if it merits it. And that's the world of the souls. And it's going to attain there somewhat of the semblance of what it's going to attain in the future world. After the resurrection, according to the deeds that it did in its life. The Ramchal, has given us the whole story of reward and punishment. He's told us straight, do the good of Torah, the reward is coming. Do the bad, the punishment is coming. This world, the next world, both worlds. How does it function? What's the purpose of it all? God wants to bestow the good. He wants to bestow the good of the soul and to the body together. It's going to be an unbelievable experience. It was supposed to have been already at the time of Gan Eden. When Adam and Eve were in Gan Eden, it was supposed to be already. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be because they committed the Savera, they did the sin. Nevertheless, as we progress on our life journey, and ultimately we die and we get buried, and the body returns to its original state of the dust where it came from, and meanwhile the soul is now rejoicing in the world to come, waiting for the moment when the Techiyat will happen, the resurrection will happen. At that point in time, the soul will be returned back into this beautiful body, which will have a luster and a light about it, something that we don't understand yet today. It is something that Adam had himself. And of course, at that moment in time, we will realize the greatness of who we really are, and we will see the godliness in the world really even coming out of ourselves. We'll be able to experience this glow and this light that comes out, and the cleaving that we will ultimately have with God. Thank you very much for joining me for this Shear. I'm Eliyahu Shear. My website, www.lovingkindness.co. If you've enjoyed the Shear, please give it the thumbs up by clicking on the like button. You see there's this like button underneath the video, and when you click on it, it'll make a nice little movement and the lights will shine. It gives you a lot of light and happiness in your life, and you'll see the thumb moving. It's fantastic. Click on the like button. In addition, please do subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you have, I thank you very much for that. And don't forget to tell your family and friends also to subscribe to this channel. It's just as easy for them to do as it was for you. Then in addition, please click on the bell button to be notified of future shiurim. And as I always say at my shiurim, please understand that these shiurim are given free, and I love giving them. But you can take a part in helping me grow in my own life also. And that is by becoming a member of Chesed Ve'emet. You can visit my website and you can simply become a member, a monthly member. Or alternatively, you can go to my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/Eliyahu Shear. And over there, you can donate whatever amount you're able to each month and help me to be able to have that ability to offer my time to give more of these shiurim and give more over to those who are enjoying it. If you have enjoyed it and you find that there are other types of shiurim that you'd like to learn about, always please feel free to be in touch with me. You can contact me via my website and let me know how things are going. Tell me your story, and I'd be delighted to respond and to share any future videos that might appeal to you in the future. Thanks very much for joining me. I look forward to another shiur in the near future, and I wish you everything of the best. Take care. Shalom, shalom. Bye-bye.